Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Streakwave Webinars presentation of Grandstream. We're very pleased today to have Grandstream with us, a new vendor with Streakwave. For those of you who listen in on these webinars regularly, you know that we provide overviews, information about products, and materials and information from the industry. And we're very pleased today to have Joe Santos of Grandstream Networks. He's the sales manager for North America for Grandstream. We're going to be discussing a range of different types of products and offerings today, and you will have an opportunity to ask questions during the presentation and at the end of the presentation. It will not be an open mic situation. We would ask that you type your questions into the questions section on your tool panel at the right, and we will get to as many of those questions as possible during the Q&A, and we're happy to do that with you. I want to tell you a little bit about Grandstream and Streakwave before we begin. Grandstream was founded in 2002. They are a leading manufacturer of IP voice, video, and telephony products, including video surveillance solutions. And they serve small and medium-sized businesses as well as large businesses with telephony products for productivity. They are a widely known brand, and Streakwave is very pleased to have brought them on board just this month. I'd like to introduce Joe Santos. He's going to be our presenter today from Grandstream. We are Streakwave. We're a master distributor for the wireless and fixed wireless industry. And Joe, why don't I give it over to you, and you can give us a background on Grandstream and some of the products.
Great. Thanks a lot, Richard. Thanks for inviting me to this call. I'll get into Grandstream. Grandstream was founded 10 years ago. Company started off as a little ATA manufacturer, little analog phone adapters that convert analog phones to voice over IP. Shortly after that, we moved into the IP phone industry, and then IP video phones. Within the past 5 years, we've been making IP-based video phones, multimedia phones, which I'll go into some of those products. And then I'd say within the last 3 or 4 years, we've gotten into the video surveillance part of things. So without any more, I'll get into this webinar. I'll go over some products. I have detailed specs. I don't necessarily want to go into all the details, but would love to answer any questions that you might have pertaining to any of the products that I go over. So the first section I'm going to kind of go over is our GXP series, and that's our IP phones. Probably our most popular product category is IP phones. This is a GXP 2120. It's probably our high-end executive phone. It's a 6-line phone. It has a busy lamp field with buttons on the right-hand side, and it has 4 XML programmable keys, and it supports all the major voice codecs that you'd expect, including the HD voice codecs that's widely used, very popular today. This has an expansion module that goes with it, so you can almost have a sidecar that can hold up to an additional 56 buttons. So if you need for a big receptionist console, this might be a good solution with an expandable expansion module. This is the 2124. This product's been around for probably about 6 or 7 months, becoming very popular. It's a 4-line phone. It has 24 speed dial buttons on the right-hand side. The screen is a 24 by 120 LCD. It has 8 XML programmable keys, so there's 4 along the bottom, and then another 4 along the right-hand side. Again, supports the same voice codecs. This is PoE. This is a PoE phone. Has dual network ports, so you have a pass-through port for a computer. Supports weather, stocks, currency, so you can get that sort of thing on the screen of a phone. This is a 2110, also a 4-line phone. The design is very similar to the 2120. It's got a slightly smaller screen, but it has more BLF speed dial buttons on the right-hand side. It has this one has 18. Again, the same codecs, including the HD. This one also has an expansion module that you can use to expand up to 56 additional buttons, and you can daisy chain 2 of those together. So if you really wanted a big receptionist console, this could be a good fit. This is a 2100, GXP 2100, also a 4-line phone. Does not have an expansion module, a little bit smaller of a phone. Very good speaker phone quality. What we've done in this phone is design the speaker chamber to be very large, so you can almost put this in a conference room and get very, very, very good speaker quality because of the speaker chamber so big. This is also PoE, has dual network ports, and most of the phones that we manufacture, I would say probably about 90 to 95%, have RJ9 as well as 2.5 millimeter headset jacks. So you can, depending on what headset jack, if someone already has it, so you don't necessarily need to go out and buy another headset jack because it supports both the RJ9 and 2.5 millimeter. This is a GXP 1450, kind of a business phone, but what you would probably find on everyone's desk in the office. Just a nice 2-line phone with a smaller type of a screen. You don't have all of the BLF's programmable buttons on the right-hand side. This one's also PoE. Also supports the weather, stock, and currency, those types of applications on the phone. And again, this one's supports the HD voice as well. This is a GXP 1400, similar to the 1450. It is a 2-line phone. It's got a slightly smaller screen, and it does not have a backlight. That's the main difference. Slightly smaller screen and no backlight, and it's priced pretty competitively, especially when you're going to go and deploy when it's a deployment of a couple hundred phones. You know, the cost, their customers are usually pretty cost conscious, so this becomes a very good fit for that type of a deployment. It's a GXP 1400 and a 1405. There's 2 models. The difference between the two is PoE. 1400 is non-PoE, and the 1405 is PoE. One thing that I also like to mention, even though our phones are PoE, we ship everything with a power supply, different from a lot of the competitors that are out there. If they have a PoE phone, they don't ship it with a power supply, and if you don't have a PoE switch, you're left buying additional power supply. So we ship our products, all of them, with a power supply. This is the latest and greatest product from Grandstream. This has been around for, I would say, about a month or so. This is our new deck product, the DP 710 and 715. So the 715 is a phone with a base station, which is what you see on the lower left-hand side here. And then next to it is the 710, which is essentially a deck phone, a handset with a charger. So the display is 1.7 inches, LCD color backlit. As you can see, it's blue. The codecs that it supports, the major codecs that you would expect. Supports the telephony features that you'd expect in a business phone, like caller ID, call blocking, call waiting, flash, transfer, blind transfer, and attendant transfer, call forwarding, hold, do not disturb, and 3-way conferencing. So not only can it be used in a residential space, but you can use it in a business environment. I probably like a small to medium-sized businesses where they may have, a couple of deck phones, maybe a pizza shop, or small little restaurants that might need a phone that needs to be mobile. This deck phone is a really good option. And you can pair up to 5 handsets off of one base station. So you can add, from a 715, you can add an additional 4 710s to get a total of 5 handsets off of one base station. This is some of the interoperability that we've done with some of the service providers, switch manufacturers that are out there. 3CX, we have a very, very close relationship with. They're a Windows-based PBX manufacturer, and there's some large ones that you'll see on here. BroadSoft, BroadBox, who does some SIP trunking as well as some hosted voice over IP stuff. Epigee, another one that we have a very, very close relationship with. Elastics, which is a flavor of asterisk. So there's quite a long list here. I'm not going to go through it all, and there's probably even there's a more extensive list that can be found on our website on the partners that we've done interoperability with. Another one, big one that's on here is SKYPE. We have some SKYPE certified products that I'll go into in a little bit. Do you know if there, Richard, were there any questions that came up when I was going through that first section there?
They asked a little bit about the applications and where these would be most likely used. Maybe we could talk a little bit about.
You know, I have some slides that kind of go into that. I can on where it can be towards the end of this presentation where you could use the products, because it's not only a phone. It could be phone surveillance, and so I'm going to kind of go over all the products, and then I'll kind of go. I have 3 or 4 slides that show where you would use them in a business environment, hotel type environments, and that type of thing. But I'll get into that shortly.
Just one more question before you go off.
Oh, sure.
We were asked about the bandwidth requirements for using these phones, and maybe you could talk a little bit about what's required on the other side in order to do that.
As long as you have a broadband connection, the bandwidth is not going to be an issue. I don't know the exact bandwidth requirements. I'd have to double check on that. And it's going to depend on whether it's just a phone, how many phones you have, whether you're doing video, passive video, or just voice. And the voice codecs that you use is also going to drive more bandwidth. So some codecs take up more bandwidth than others. So those are some factors. But I don't know that there's a specific number requirement, but I'll certainly check with our engineering group. I'm not sure what that the minimum requirement would be. But as long as someone has a broadband or a DSL connection, they should be fine.
Great.
So the next section I'm going to get into is our video phones, IP multimedia phones, and the first one here is a GXV 3140. This is a SKYPE certified phone. It has a native SKYPE client, so you can do native video SKYPE calls free to any other SKYPE device. It has a 4.3-inch color LCD screen. The camera on the front of this has a 1.3 millimeter camera. And there's also a privacy shutter. Unlike most of the video phones that are out there or what you have on a computer, you can actually shut the camera off. It's almost like a shutter that goes over the lens so that you can't, if you pick up the phone and it's a video call and you don't necessarily want to have a video call, you're not necessarily going to have that video call. So just another good feature. This is a 3-line phone, and it will support up to 3-way video conferencing. So you can do a 3-way video conferencing with this phone and 2 others. So if you had maybe remote locations and a main office, you could do some video conferencing and bridge 3 parties together. It has some interesting things like a web browser, some interesting applications, web photo album, calendar. So it's more than just a phone, it's multimedia. And there's also an API that we have developed if someone wants to develop custom applications, and it's been done before for things like call centers where they may want to put a script on a screen, or a hotel type of application in a room where they might want to give features of what's going on in the local area, maybe even being able to order tickets to a show that might be going on locally where you're staying at the hotel, just informational type stuff. So it gives you access to the web, and there's an API interface that we've developed to customize the screen. And then this is the GXV 3140. This has got a bigger screen. It's a 7-inch touch screen. This one's also has three accounts, has integrated Wi-Fi. This one has PoE. This one also the same XML customization guide. that we have developed for the 3140, similar to the 3175. This one does not support Skype. Unlike, it's different from the 3140. Like I said, doesn't support Skype. One of the neat features that we've added into this is an integrated BLF. So as you can see here, you can have on-screen busy lamp field, red when someone's on the phone, green when someone's not on the phone. So you can kind of get presence on what's going on in the office on screen. So it's a pretty interesting little application. Also does direct IP calling, and that will become more you'll understand why we have direct IP calling once I go into some of the video surveillance products. What you can actually do is dial from a phone directly to an IP surveillance camera to be able to capture video on the other end, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that on the surveillance piece. That was our video products, our video phones. Next, I'm going to go into the gateways and ATAs, kind of the products that the ATAs are the products that launched Grandstream 10 years ago. So what we have is, I'm going to get into a 4000 series, which is an FXS gateway. This one's also Skype certified. You can see it on the Skype store. So this is a product that has been certified by Skype to bring in. It's an FXS gateway to bring in a SIP trunk maybe on a hosted platform, or if someone has a premise-based PBX and wants to keep their analog phones and bring in an IP PBX. One of these gateways would be able to convert those analog phones to IP and work with an IP PBX. It also supports faxing. The fax codex is T.38. This is our 24-port gateway, FXS, similar to the one I just went over. This one's also supported a Skype-certified product. Like I said, 24 ports as opposed to the 4 and the 8 that you get in the smaller gateways. One of the biggest features, newest features that we've added to this is the ability to handle 24 neon light analog phones. So those hotel phones that those phones you find in the hotels, they need a little bit more power to power up those neon lights, and we've added some additional power, changed the hardware in this gateway to be able to support that. So one of the common applications that I see is resellers and integrators going directly into hotels and switching out that old analog PBX that they have, putting in a PBX, but changing the wiring infrastructure gets very, very expensive. So what they do is put in these gateways. You can stack multiple gateways, 10, 15 gateways in a closet to connect all those analog phones, and it becomes a relatively inexpensive solution to get them out of that analog PBX and into the IP PBX, and using some SIP trunks to lower their cost of their monthly phone bill. This is the FXO series. So this is to bring in PSTN lines for a PBX, maybe a PBX that doesn't have FXO lines in it, maybe an IP PBX. I know specifically the 3CX product does not have FXO ports. It's essentially a software-based application that runs on a computer. So what you would do is connect the network, you'd connect the network cable to this, then bring in the PSTN lines into the 3CX PBX. And there's a couple other ones out there. All the different flavors of asterisk. Most of them are running on some sort of server computer that may not have those FXS or FXO capabilities. So these are very common applications that you might be able to use an FXO gateway. This is our HT series, the 500 series. So we make two of them, a 503 and a 502. They're both 2 ports. They have a LAN and a WAN, so they have a router functionality. The 502 has 2 FXS ports. The 503 has one FXS and one FXO, and that's common in some areas, maybe not so much here in the U.S. because calling is so relatively inexpensive, but in other areas, in countries where you call, or continents where you call from one country to another and it becomes very expensive, you can hop from the PSTN to a SIP trunk using just one of these devices. So it becomes very cost effective in other parts of the world. Like I said, not necessarily here in the U.S. because usually you get unlimited calling for most of the United States. So, but in other parts of the world, the HT503 is very common and popular product. It might be popular with some of the applications that you have as well. This is our newest line of ATAs, the 700 series. They're FXS gateways. So there's a 1-port, there's a 2-port, and there is a 4-port. These are very similar to the HT502 that I just spoke about. One thing that we did find out after doing some research with our customer base is that most of the customers were not utilizing the router functionality, so the WAN port on the gateway, and that was making the products more expensive. So what we did is we took the router functionality out of the little ATAs and created a new line of products in a relatively inexpensive ATA for service providers, residential service providers. This is a very, very common product that's out there, the 701 and 702. 704 is probably more on the small office, home office, where you might have a fax, a couple faxes, and a couple different lines coming in. But again, these also do support fax. So this is our 700 series. The third section I'm going to kind of get into here is kind of what makes Grandstream different, at least in the telephony world. What we have done is, as I mentioned, we've gotten into the video surveillance space, and we've integrated in all of our surveillance products a SIP client. So what you can do is register an extension from a PBX back to a camera. So you can dial then from a video phone to a surveillance camera and have a video and audio conversation with someone on the other end of a surveillance camera. Because what we do also have on our surveillance products is a microphone and a speaker built in. And if there are not microphone and speakers built in, there is audio out and audio input, so you can connect an external microphone or speaker to the device. One of the common applications that I've seen this in is maybe a front door at an office that might be locked, and someone rings a buzzer. It calls the receptionist, and the receptionist can see who's at the front door, and then from the phone, open the door strike on the other end where the camera might be. So that's another interesting application on where you might be able to use some of our video surveillance and video phone products out there, for your customers. So choosing the right surveillance camera, I'm going to get into some of the different surveillance cameras. This is a nice matrix to have. On the left-hand side, it has all the different cameras that we make, and then different specs around the across the top. So you can kind of see that we make some HD cameras, some low-light cameras, some cube cameras for more residential, some Wi-Fi cameras. We make a 5-megapixel camera, as well as an outdoor vandal-proof. And I'll get into a little bit more detail on the cameras, but I just wanted to kind of show you the matrix. So some of the standard features that our surveillance cameras support are HTTPS, alarm buffering, video watermarking, multi-stream rates. So what we can do is send 2 streams, a primary and a secondary stream. One might go to a monitoring area. The other stream may go to a management software that is recording everything. So you may just view it in low resolution and record in high resolution, so that if you ever need to go back to that video and see that, you can get the video in high resolution, high quality, not necessarily taking up bandwidth, watching, high-quality video. Everything's password protected, and then as I mentioned, it all has all of our products have a what's called a SIP VoIP technology inside, so a built-in SIP client. The two-way audio, event trigger snapshots. So upon entering a specific region on the camera's view, it can trigger an alarm to take a picture and send a snapshot via text, email, whatever it might be to notify you that there is movement in the view of the camera. We also make some encoders, IP video encoders. So what they do is convert an analog camera to IP. So if customers that you have out there might have those old analog cameras and they want to take advantage of some of the advantages of an IP camera, like remote viewing and that type of stuff, you know, you can use some of our encoders, the GXV 3501, which is a 1-port, and the 3504, which is a 4-port. The 3501 does also support Wi-Fi. It has a little USB port on the back that you can convert this device to Wi-Fi. So if you're in an area where, you know, it might be remote and you're not able to run network cable, you can use Wi-Fi. This is our cube camera, the 3615 series. As you can see, it's a small little cube camera. There's a 3615, which is PoE, and then there's a 3615W, which is Wi-Fi. There's also a third one that we've recently came out with, a 3615 WP HD. So it's Wi-Fi, PoE, as well as 2 megapixel high definition. So it's a small little camera like that that's 2 megapixel, very good quality that you get in the 2 megapixel small little camera like that. It's actually pretty amazing, and especially when you look at the cost of the product. Really a good bang for the buck. Also, all of our surveillance products are full ONVIF compliant. If you're not familiar, ONVIF is the standard that all of the camera manufacturers are going to in the IP surveillance world. So I believe it was developed by Sony. So we are ONVIF compliant. We continue to be ONVIF compliant with all of our products. This is the Wi-Fi one that I had mentioned, the 3615 WP HD. One thing that makes this one different from the other two, it does have a little micro SD card, so you can record locally on the camera. Also, all of the cameras have a pre and post event alarm buffer, so you can record before and after an event happens to ensure that you don't miss any sort of anything that might have happened in the field of view. If you're recording something, if it was whatever it might have been, someone stealing or whatever it might be that you're recording. This is our box cameras. This is the 3601 series. There's 3 different models that we make in this series. There's a 3601, a 3601 HD, which again is a high definition 2 megapixel camera, and then the 3601 LL, which is for low light areas like a parking lot, where you might put a low light camera, not where it's always dark and you're not able to see anything, but in low light areas where there's low light. The next is the IP mini dome cameras. This is our 3611 series. There's an HD, which is a 2 megapixel, and a low light, again, in parking lot areas, low lit areas. I'll also mention that all of our surveillance cameras are also PoE. So with the exception of the one that I mentioned, that the Wi-Fi. So PoE is also a standard in, I would say, 99% of our surveillance products. So that's certainly a plus. And they all ship with a power supply. So if PoE is not something someone's using, there's a power supply with it. This is probably one of our most popular selling cameras, the GXV3662. It's an outdoor vandal-proof camera, so the glass on the outside of this is pretty solid. I've tried actually breaking one with a baseball bat and was not very successful. Has a built-in heater and a fan, so it's IP66, and it can regulate the temperature, whether it's cold outside and the fan or the heater needs to kick in to heat the unit up, but it essentially has a temperature, a thermostat in there that regulates, and a heater and a fan that regulates the temperature inside there, so it doesn't get too hot or too cold. So it's what's called IP66, the 3662. Like I mentioned, this is probably our most popular selling product. This is a newer type camera for us, a GXV3651. FHD is full HD, so this is a 5-megapixel camera, and the quality for a 5-megapixel camera is pretty unbelievable, especially when you compare the price of the cameras. So there's a link right here on the bottom of this. This is a link to our website, and I believe Streakwave has actually added this to their website, where you can view a live demo of probably about 5 or 6 different Grandstream cameras. So if you just wanted to view the audio quality of the camera, you can't necessarily get in and play with any of the settings or anything like that, but you can certainly see the video quality that you might get out of some of our cameras, and again, it's on our website. And like I said, I think Streakwave has added it to their website.
It is there, and they can play with, I think, 4 different cameras on our site, and I'll give the information about that when you're done.
Yeah, I don't know if you can log in to actually play with the camera, but you can certainly view I don't think you can configure anything, unless you guys have cameras there locally that you've put out on IPs.
It's more for just looking at the quality of the camera. I think they can play with the zoom, but there's you can't reset the settings.
You can't change the settings. Okay. And then there's some video management software that we make, so I'm going to kind of go into some ways where you can manage the video, view the video. First would be through a video phone, like I had mentioned. Like I said, they both support SIP, so you can have an extension-to-extension dialing off of a PBX. And another thing that I had mentioned, so if you don't necessarily have a PBX in the middle, you can do direct IP calling from our video phone. So a video phone can make an IP call to the IP address of the camera, and it'll just pass the video back and forth. So that's why I mentioned that the direct IP calling might be useful, to dial. If you don't have a PBX, you don't necessarily need the PBX. You can just do direct IP calling from a video phone to a video surveillance camera. There's also some iPhone and Android applications. This one happens to be one on the iPhone. It's called IP Cam Viewer. So this is a third-party company. This is not anything that Grandstream has developed. This is a third-party company that makes an iPhone app, and our cameras are supported on this iPhone app. It's called IP Vision. There's also one for the Android market, and it's called TinyCam Monitor. Similar. This is a third-party company. We have nothing to do with the development of the software. Our cameras are supported on there. We work with the developers for a TinyCam Monitor to ensure that our cameras do work, and we've certified them with this Android application. We also have something called GServe, which is a video management software. It's completely free. You can download it from our website. You can monitor, record up to 36 cameras. Again, it is free, so you're not going to get the advanced functionality that you might get out of a high-end, expensive VMS software. But for a small application where they may only need 6 or 8 cameras, this is a good solution. It does recording. It also supports the two-way audio. So there's some functionality and some features that that are on there. You can't. There's some things that you can do with it, but then again, it's like I mentioned, it's free. I welcome you to download it, pick up a camera, and test it with GSurf. It might be a very good solution for a lot of your customers that are out there with the 4, 6, or 8 camera system that they might be looking for, and it can be relatively inexpensive because the management software is free. We've also done some stuff with some asterisk developers where you can use some coding within an asterisk environment to trigger recording. So this is just a quick little slide just mentioning that you can use an asterisk based IP PBX to kind of do some sort of video management stuff as well. This is a short list of the VMS manufacturers, partners that we have done some interop with. Milestone, Nuo is a pretty big popular one, and OnVIF, which is the standard. GVD is another one. GV Digital. So this is a short list. There's a more complete list on our website, but just to mention that we do have interop partners. If there's another VMS that you see that's not listed on our website that you might be working with, I'm always happy to do more interop and work with some more of the VMS manufacturers that might be out there. These are some of the other OnVIF compliant manufacturers: Acti, Axis, Bosch, Canon, Cisco. I think Cisco and D-Link are one and the same these days. LG, Panasonic, Pelco, Samsung, Siemens, and Sony. This is a short list. You probably find a more complete list on OnVIF's website, but this is among the companies that we work with to support OnVIF. So this is one of the, as I mentioned, I wanted to kind of go over some of the areas on where you might use some of our phones. So this would be an office building. You might have, so in the upper left-hand corner here, you might have a gate that might be locked, and you can put an inexpensive analog phone in there for maybe a security guard. A GXP, below that you have maybe a receptionist desk where I mentioned the GXP 2110, which has all the busy lamp field buttons. And then maybe a remote worker might use a multimedia phone, the GXV 3140. And then you have GXW 410X if there's, you wanted to bring in some PSTN trunks into the office. And then on the on the right-hand side here, you have GSurf running with multiple cameras to be able to do some monitoring. So this is kind of one of the ways on how you might put some ideas on where you might put all of these products that we manufacture in an office environment. This is a school type of environment. So the 2110 would probably be in an admin office area, 3140, 3175, maybe a conference room area if you wanted to do some video. And then here on the bottom, some surveillance cameras, maybe in a classroom to do some monitoring, surveillance monitoring. And then you can use, like I said, GSurf to manage multiple cameras wherever they might be, outdoors, indoors, in hallways, cafeterias, out there on outdoors, so you might be able to see what students are doing. So just kind of another environment where you might be able to use some of the different Grandstream products. This is in a hotel type of environment. So we make one phone I realize now that I did not go over is a GXP 1100 and 1105, which is the ones that are across the bottom here. This is a hotel phone that you might find in a hotel room. So the GXP 1100 in a hotel room. Maybe the front desk would be a GXP 2110, which has all the speed dial and BLF and receptionist type of console that you might need in that type of area. Then 3175 maybe in a conference room where you might be able to need some multimedia type of functionality. And then surveillance products, for a hotel and lobbies, back doors, parking lots, whatever it might be. You can obviously use GSurf to manage or some other VMS to manage multiple surveillance cameras. I believe there's one more that I have here. This is another hotel one. So where you would use on the right-hand side here, you have the 3175, talking back directly to some video surveillance cameras. On the lower right-hand side here, this would be what you would see on a video phone, like I had mentioned before. Let's say you were in a hotel room and you wanted to see what was going on, restaurants in the area. You could create a custom application on these 3175s and bring them into specific hotel rooms, so the guests would be able to see, what's going on in the area. Just create a customized type application for a hotel. And then to the left of that, we have our GXW 4024, which is the analog gateway connected to analog hotel phones. And then just above that, you have a manage and alter the API, so you can customize the API for different types of things, maybe a wake-up call for specific people in the hotel. So there's full customization on the 3175 and 3140. So there's as creative as someone can get with it is how it might work in different environments. This is a bank type of environment, so where you have a phone at a teller, maybe some mobile employees where you might need a headset. You'd probably use the GXP 2120. All of them, as you can probably see and notice on the top, there almost every single one of the slides that I mentioned with these schematics had a GXW410X, which is the analog gateway to bring in PSTN trunks. What a lot of businesses do is bring in a PSTN trunk for failover. Let's say the voice over IP goes down, whatever it might be. The internet goes down, your phone system's not going to work. So they rely on a backup PSTN line coming in. So almost everywhere you saw a 410X, which is the FXO series gateways. And then again, on the right-hand side here, we have some video management for a surveillance in a bank. And here is my contact information. And Richard, with all that I went over, I'm assuming that there were questions.
Definitely questions. So let me get to the one that's always asked of us when we have this depth of information in a webinar. That is, how can I watch this again? How can I see the slides? I have an engineer or somebody who I'd like to show this to. How am I going to show it to them? Good news, as I say on these webinars, is that we record these webinars and we edit them so that they can be presented both on our YouTube channel and also on the landing pages. We call them the landing pages for the manufacturer. If you go to streakwave.com and look under the manufacturers for Grandstream, if you go there, this webinar in its entirety will be posted. It usually takes us 2 to 3 days to get it to the point where it's in really good shape to be up for the public. That will obviously include both the audio and the slide deck, and you can watch through the webinar there. So we encourage you to join us on the YouTube channel, which is just youtube/streakwave.com, or youtube.com/streakwave, excuse me, or at streakwave.com and go to Grandstream to see these things. So that's the housekeeping on where you can see this presentation and also look at the slides again. Another thing that I want to note, because there's so many different kinds of products here, is we have the specifications and information on all of these products listed on our website. So if you want to take a look at the spec sheets or you want to see which things go with which, they're there for your examination. Streakwave is also a stocking distributor, stocking major distributor for Grandstream, so you can get your products through Streakwave, and turns out Grandstream is very close by to Streakwave, so we also have the ability, if there is anything that isn't in our stock, to be able to get quick access to that inventory from Grandstream. So that shouldn't be an issue. People had asked about where they can get the product and how the product can be accessed. Let's get on to some of the little bit more technical questions. Now, you talked about different applications, such as in hotels and offices, campuses, banks, restaurants, retail. We had a specific question about using wireless functionality. They have a yard, an industrial yard, if they want to use phones. Do you have any wireless phones that would connect into these systems that could be used outdoors or in a large warehouse environment?
The 31, both of our multimedia phones support Wi-Fi. The 3175 has integrated Wi-Fi. The 3140 has a USB port on the side, and we make a little USB Wi-Fi adapter that you can use on the 3140. Not so necessarily. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, so that this will allow you to change any of the smaller phones into a Wi-Fi phone as well. Is that correct?
Only for the currently, it's only supported on the GXV 3140 for Wi-Fi. It's
great.
Phones.
Okay.
So yeah, so there are some options available.
A couple of people have asked about the network that they have to have in order to hook into with these phones. You want to talk a little bit about what resources they have to have available in order to use either your phones or your cameras?
I don't know specifically. That's more technical than that's above my technical expertise on the networking side. But I can certainly get answers. You know what? I'll get with one of our engineers and we can get these questions answered.
Okay. And generally speaking, though, you showed a list of interoperable standards so that they fit with a lot of different systems. So if they have a legacy system, they can hook them in. That's basically what I saw on your slides.
Correct. Yeah, but yes, correct.
And I wanted to make a comment also. You talked about failover systems and using a backline as a failover system. Streakwave also offers some other failover systems in case you need them, including ones that do 3G and 4G solutions. So there are a range of different ways to have a backup system if you need them. One of the things that I see, clearly in this line is that you have a fairly wide range of products that do a lot of different applications, and they're all fairly low cost. What is the most common profile that you see? Where do you see people using these the most?
I mean, I guess it's going to vary. Products, where do I see people using our products the most? Probably the most just because we manufacture and deploy so many of them, I'd probably say our ATAs in residential type environments. So in residential ITSP providing dial tone service over the internet, going in and selling dial tone and connecting one of our little devices to the analog phones that someone might have in their house to make it IP. I say that because that's probably, we manufacture more ATAs and deploy more ATAs than any other product out there, just because they're small, they're cost effective. As far as phones, small to medium-sized businesses, whatever it might be, whether it's in a, whether it's a school. I mean, I've certainly seen applications in schools, but the small to medium-sized businesses that are out there, maybe mom-and-pop type shops where they might only have 3 or 4 phones.
So the next question I have sort of takes off of the phone and goes to the computer. A lot of VoIP phones have soft phone applications. Is there a soft phone or a methodology of utilizing your system through the computer as opposed to using the handset itself?
Mm-hmm. We don't make any sort of soft phones. There are some soft phones that are out there. What I would just recommend is that those soft phones work with whatever PBX platform you're using. So it would be a function of the PBX platform. I know a common one out there is BRIA, B-R-I-A, for a soft client. But there's a lot of soft clients out there. We don't necessarily make a soft client.
So the next thing is, since you have obviously such a wide range of phones, and some of them you said do have SKYPE interoperability, some of them do direct IP calling, some of the you have gateways that allow you to, or encoders that allow you to go between analog and digital. What are you seeing on the horizon? Are you seeing more IP calling stuff going on? What types of things do you see coming? What is your roadmap? And what type of products might you expect in the future?
There's certainly, I don't have a roadmap right now, but we're usually pretty aggressive with the products that we come out with every year. I can tell you in the next 12 months there'll be some new cameras, some new phones, and probably even some new gateways. So there'll probably be a little bit of everything. We like to at least every 12 months introduce a couple new phones and a couple of new cameras. We're pretty aggressive in bringing products to market and new products to market. So there'll be some pretty interesting as far as phones. I imagine in the next 3 or 4 months, maybe even sooner, you'll probably see an Android-based desk phone that looks very similar to our 3140 and runs on an open Android platform. So as far as development, companies, customers have come to us, we want to develop applications for your phone, we want to develop applications for your phone, and we don't necessarily want to be an application developer. So we came up with the idea to make a phone on an open Android platform. So Android would be the development platform for the phone.
Great. So there are a few more questions, but we're just about out of time. So if there is a question that you've posted and it hasn't been answered here in this webinar, we will get back to you and send you an email and try our best to give you some of the questions are very technical, and we don't want to do that here on the phone, but we will give you an answer by email. On behalf of Streakwave and Grandstream, I want to thank everybody for attending today. I want to thank Joe Santos, for doing this presentation and giving us information about Grandstream Networks products. Again, all of the products that you see are available through Streakwave. If you have questions about how the systems operate or how to produce a product, a solution or an application for your need, give your Streakwave account representative a call, or come to streakwave.com, and there's ways to get answers for all of those things. One last time, the webinar will be available both on Streakwave's YouTube channel and on the landing page on streakwave.com for Grandstream. If there are any questions, please feel free to get a hold of us, and we'll be happy to answer them. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for attending Streakwave webinar's presentation of Grandstream Networks. Thanks to Joe Santos, and everybody have a great day. Thank you so much.